There's a story at Christian Post, and it will turn your stomach. We keep thinking that we can integrate the Muslim world into our culture. It's not going to happen. Albeit, this is funny. Speaking of Donald Trump, Dearborn, Michigan, which is about the most Muslim town in America, in the primaries in Michigan the other day, Dearborn went for Bernie Sanders, a Jewish man, and Donald Trump, who says that he will severely crack down on Muslim immigration. However, you got to think about something. Those people all came over. I think I mentioned this. They came over from Yemen in 1957. Now, I know this story because my dad was working for Ford Stamping in Lackawanna, New York at the time, and some of them came over and worked at Ford Stamping. That's in the Buffalo area. And in Detroit, it was no different. Detroit, Ford was looking for workers. They couldn't find it. We had a labor shortage in this country so severe. So these are people who've been here now, they're Buffalo Bills fans and Detroit Lions fans. They know pain. Believe me, they seriously know pain. But they've been here for a very, very long time, and 3, 4 generations now. They were auto workers. They're no longer auto workers because, of course, the jobs all went away. Well, they're angry, and so Donald Trump comes along and says, I'll put an end to this. Bernie Sanders says, I'll put an end to this. They went out and they voted for these guys. So Trump trumped religion in that case, didn't he? 925, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Have you had your hearing checked? Because I keep telling you that hearing this show might be one of the most important things you do every day. And if you're having difficulty doing that, you need to get in touch with Dr. Christine Pickup. She's a doctor of audiology based in Rupert. She's in Mount Harrison Audiology. That's in the medical building at 1218 9th Street and unit number 2. You can give her office a telephone call at 312-0957 or go online. You can look her up at mountharrisonaudiology.com. And she'd like to remind you that diabetes and hearing loss are linked. If you or a loved one is struggling with diabetes control, it could also be affecting your hearing, and diabetes is obviously on the rise in this country. The inner ear is incredibly sensitive to changes in your blood supply. High blood sugars can cause hearing changes. Be sure to have your hearing screened today. This is the story from the Christian Post, and it tells you quite a bit about Islamic culture. Really, we've all heard some of these horror stories in the past and why it does not integrate well. Those people who came from Yemen in 1957, they essentially integrated themselves at that time by lowering it down. They're not practicing what you'd call 7th century Islam, like much of the world is now being encouraged to do. ISIS radicals are raping 8 and 9-year-old girls in packed halls of victims, report reveals. From Stoyan Zaimov, who's a Christian Post reporter, Islamic State militants have been raping girls as young as 8 and 9. That comes from an extremist report. One woman described how she was raped in Mosul and that she heard the screams of girls who had been taken from the main hall where she and other women were being kept to a small adjacent room. She recounted how she saw an IS man point a gun at a young girl who had been resisting. After Mosul, they were taken to a school in Tal Afar where they were reportedly more than 100 small children. A second witness said she was raped 3 times a day for 3 days by guards and saw an 8 or 9-year-old girl being raped openly in the hall. Now, a lot of these people are Christians. And so, according to the Islamic faith, that's okay. If they were to do that in this country and then they got arrested and convicted of doing that, they would be sent off to prison. And within 6 months, their carcass would be found in the shower with a crowbar up their rectum. That's how we solve those issues in this country. But right now, that's how it works in the rest of the world. Do we want to bring that here? Now, at the moment, when we say that those people that came over and settled in Lackawanna, New York, and Dearborn, Michigan, they got along quite well, yes, because there aren't any overwhelming numbers. They may dominate their communities and their suburbs. One is a suburb of Detroit, one is a suburb of Buffalo, but they don't dominate the culture. There just aren't enough of them. But if you keep thinking, well, all we have to do is open the floodgates. We'll open the floodgates with Mexico and we'll bring Mexicans, Costa Ricans, Ecuadorians, Guatemalans, Hondurans. We'll just bring them here and everyone can come live in the USA. And you know what? We'll bring the entire Muslim world here too. Well, you're going to destroy this culture and the norms that we have, the mores that we have. And why so many liberals would like to bring something like that to our shores is just beyond me. But we have to be compassionate. No, we don't have to be compassionate. It's like the foolish liberal who says, well, we have to let boys who think they're girls use the girls' locker room and bathroom. I'll tell you what, you make me king for a day, a lot of those people are going to get stuffed back into a closet. I'm not kidding you. And we'll make clear after a couple of weeks, make me king for 2 weeks. We'll make clear after a couple of weeks that this will not be tolerated any longer in this country. I am not giving up the security of my little children to make somebody else feel better about some awful choice they made in their own lives. 929, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Christian Post also reports that Billy Graham's son Franklin is going to Moscow, where he is going to be joined by the Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church in an effort to try to help prevent the persecutions of Christians in the Middle East, which, of course, the Obama White House is still struggling with whether they're going to call that genocide or not. Oh, I would not want to offend any of my cousins from that part of the world. And secondly, the Crusades were bad and mean, and this is payback for that 1,000 years ago, even though none of you had any involvement. And now my pal Justin Trudeau and I are going to go be more flatulent. 9:30, Bill Colley with you on Top Story. Some of your telephone calls coming up, I would hope, in the next segment. 54 right now, you're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com.